Hey folks, David here. So I'm going to work on my Lionel Turbine 671. So we're just going to take this apart and see what's going on in there. We have a problem with the smoke unit's not working so great, and the E unit is not working, well, kind of not at all. So we need to figure out what's going on. Should have taken this off first. Okay, so that's the cab wheels.
Okay, not sure how that's supposed to come apart. Looks like we got screwed up here. Okay.
Okay, so this has an E unit, just like the other Lionel engines, except for the fact that it goes the other way, and that's not moving very smooth. Yeah, that should kind of bounce back. When Dave was looking at this, he was saying there's probably should be a spring in there, and you would think so. Kind of. Okay, honestly, what it looks like happened here is when somebody was going to sell this, they thought they'd put a little bit of oil in here just to make it look like it was all nice and fresh. And what happened is this barrel here, the contactor, is just gunked up with oil. And it's probably just not making contact where it needs to be. That needs to be cleaned out pretty good. Yeah, that's better than it was. See if we can get a little bit more in here. And I see this plunger here should probably have a little bit more action in it. Let's see if we can clean that just a little bit more. That's looking better already. See, all I did was clean that a little bit, and that snaps right back the way it should be. So on these E units, whether it's one of these turbines or the regular kind, you really don't want any oil or any kind of lubrication at all on this plunger. This plunger right here. I want that to be dry. So on a regular Lionel, that plunger would normally sit like this and use gravity to pull it back down. But in this case, there must be a spring inside there. I don't know. It's got to be. No spring action on that. I guess it just kind of goes that way. All right, well, let's keep cleaning this. Okay, honestly, I'm pretty satisfied that that has cleaned that pretty good. Possible that these little brushes right in here might have some dirt on them, but I did get a lot of gunk off of this drum here, and like I said, I'm pretty satisfied that it had to have done something. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit more, and I need to do something about the smoke unit here. I have some other resistors that go in here. So I'm going to replace that and get back to you in a little bit. Okay, folks, I had to take a couple minutes here and look at what I took apart and what I have. This is interesting. It's a little different than some of the other Lionels that I've worked on. Back here, these two screws behind them are the brushes, and you can see, I don't know if you can see that or not, is the commutator, and that actually looks pretty clean. So I don't think I really need to take these off and clean that, or clean the brushes. That doesn't look too bad right there. And again, that's your E unit. And we're noticing that the smoke wasn't working that great. And what happens on this wheel, there's a little tab right there, and that goes around and pushes this smoke lever up like that. And that's not moving. Yeah, it's sticking. Yeah, that should fall right back down. Well, kind of does. I need to clean this up in here. That's pretty dirty. And I can see that, you know, inside these wheels here, this is pretty bad. So I do need to clean that up a little bit better. Like I said, looks like somebody basically took this thing and they're going to sell it and thought, well, we'll just dump some oil in there and make it look like it's all fresh, but really needs to be cleaned in here better. There's your rollers here. We'll take these off. I'll show you how that comes off. Just two screws. It's not really that important to take these off other than to make sure that they're relatively clean. Set that over there. So we're not going to mess with that. Okay, so what we're going to do is take this E unit out. And that comes out like all the other Lionels. And obviously from the solder right here, somebody else has messed with this. Although it's not terrible. It's just that they took it apart and messed with it and didn't really do a great job. They should have finished it.
What's going on here? Okay, that's underneath. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to take this. I need to clean this in here. I'm not going to show that because it's, well, no real point in it. So let me just, I want to get this in here clean and in here. All right, back. Okay, folks, here we are. This is the next day, and I said I wasn't going to take this all apart, but you start taking it apart and you start finding grease and grime, and you just got to keep cleaning until you clean it. If you've seen, I did a restoration video on a 2018 and a 2026. I have a pretty aggressive, almost reckless method of cleaning these and degreasing them, and that is I use Awesome Orange from the dollar store. It's a spray cleaner, and I basically spray it and then brush it with an old toothbrush and then wash it off, and that's how I get all the grease and gunk out of here. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to put all this together, but I guess I'll put the main drive in here, put the motor back in, and part of this. Part of what was happening, the smoke unit here was kind of sticking. In other words, this would come up and kind of stay up, so it wasn't moving freely, so the smoke wasn't working that great. I also need to replace the smoke element here, but we'll get to that. So let's just get this in and those parts. On these gears I use white lithium grease, and I use a brush here to get it in there. Because if you just put it on there, it doesn't get in the gear, and then it just kind of, well, it doesn't stay in there, it comes out. So if you use a brush and you get it in the teeth of the gear, that makes it more effective. So it looks like I had said, you know, that somebody kind of put some oil on this real quick and kind of did a quick tune-up on it, but what they did was they dumped some oil on the bottom, and then that's what messed up the E unit, because it wasn't making contact. So that's okay. I'm all right with that. I mean, the whole thing is here. It's not like it's destroyed. It's just that they didn't do a complete cleaning on it or anything like that. They just kind of did a quick oil and slapped it, or, you know, didn't even slap it together. I don't even think they took it apart. They just probably, you know, put a little oil on the bottom, and then that was it. So that's way more grease than needed, but whatever it doesn't need, it'll work its way out of there, and that's okay. So we got these two little bearings, one goes on each end here. So we'll put some oil in the end of these. Way too much, that's all right. Put that on there. Again, way too much, that's all right. And then lift this up, set that in there. And then this goes on there. Oh boy, okay, let's see if we can get some of that gunk off of there. Didn't see that. Yeah, real quick, hit it with the wire brush here. I don't want any of that junk falling in there. And that's okay. That's not really gonna affect anything. There we go. I'm happier with that. So what had happened, I took this apart and started working on it. I thought, you know, I should unsolder that wire. And then after a couple minutes realized, oh well, it's unsoldered for me. It broke off right there, so I do have to resolder that. So we'll put that on.
See if we can get some screws in here without dropping them.
So this has definitely been interesting, because I've never worked on, well, this turbine is made a lot different than the other Lionels in the way that the motor sits and everything in here. I mean, it's the same basic parts, and the motor is basically the same, just positioned a little bit differently, and the E unit's exactly the same. It's just that the way this all works here. You can see why these things have so much power, because it's got this gear that runs, you know, this axle and that axle, so it really has some power. What did I do wrong here? I know what I did wrong. This bearing has to be turned around. Okay, you can see that bearing has an offset hole there, and it should be set in there with it in the lower position, like, you know, down, so that it sits flat. So we'll put that in there, you know, like that. Okay, I'm not going to put this on because I guess what I have to do is solder this wire back on before I do anything. Put a piece of shrink tubing on there. Now I know you're supposed to use flux, and this solder actually has flux in the middle of it, so you don't need to put flux on it. Okay, we'll put the motor back together. I already put oil in here. I just put some like right in here and here. So it seems to be running pretty good as is. Okay, 2 screws in the front here. And 2 screws that hold it in. Okay, like that. Oh, the brushes. I didn't put the brushes in. That's all right. Put their E unit on, and there is just 1 screw that holds the E unit in right there. Okay, that's how that goes in. And that looks like that is working fine. So hopefully, you know, I cleaned this drum here because it was pretty dirty. And hopefully that took care of it, because I really hate to take this all apart to clean these little brushes that are in there, because this is a real pain to take apart. So when we get it all done, we'll see. Okay, I need to take a break. I guess the next thing we'll do is clean the smoke unit.